Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Motivation, the show where we dive headfirst into the most amazing minds. If you missed part one of our interview, it is important that you go and see this. Financial fitness is something that every single one of us needs in our life. Assalamu alaikum, Aman. How are you? Welcome back.
Walaikum salam, Mo.
Aman, last week we discussed financial fitness. I mean, fitness is something that I love, and every single day of my life, fitness is important. But that's the physical aspect. And then we work on the mental aspect, the emotional aspect. We work on all of that. But some of us tend to just forget or don't even know about the financial aspect. And I thank you so much for explaining it to us, giving us some practical tools that we can use to come out of debt, to give charity. It's so important to find that. But I want to know something even more important. How important is the financial aspect when you pass away as a Muslim? Because we need to leave a will. It is so important. We've been taught about it. The Quran speaks in so many places in depth about inheritance and the importance of inheritance and the importance of distributing it properly. How important is it as a Muslim, every single Muslim earning money, putting money in their bank account or in their pocket, to have a will in today's day and age?
Mo, you've kicked off with something that is exceptionally important, but is often overseen. I wasn't even planning to go along the lines of the discussion you've picked up on, but correct. The Quran has got volumes of estate duty. In fact, Muslims are reputed, and through the Quran, to actually be the modern authors of what estate duty is today. So, through Roman Dutch law and through all the other variations, they have actually learnt from Muslims on what it means to leave a legacy in the form of a will. So estate planning is exceptionally important in the life of a Muslim. And what's interesting is I said in the life of a Muslim, not just while alive, but even once we've passed.
Okay.
The Prophet ﷺ himself has advocated the importance of financial responsibility through through leaving a will behind after you have passed. And I think for us as Muslims, we need to actually unpack and understand that why was so much relevance through Allah in the Quran given to us, and then through the Prophet ﷺ in his Sunnah regarding this particular element of financial responsibility. Now, in today's times, it may seem to be a common conversation, or it may seem to be a common conversation. Let's step back 1400 years. People of the time in Europe were still living in caves. Other parts of the world didn't even know what was going on. Yet, we were being taught about the importance of estate duty. In South Africa, before we even delve into the elements of a Muslim passing on and what he leaves in terms of legacy and estate, let's look at the state of affairs in our country. Let's look at the judiciary. Let's look at the state of our courts. If a person passes on intestate without a will, Mo, are you aware that your estate will be frozen? Not can be, will be frozen. Okay. And up until a court is actually available to listen to the case of the deceased estate that left without a will, it could take up to 5 years in certain instances.
Wow.
Now, obviously, this is very variable, so I'm quoting on some of the worst-case scenarios we've seen. And just given how packed the schedules are in the courts of South Africa, families have become destitute, even though while the spouse was alive or the person alive led a good life. But if they died without a will, it actually left the families destitute because all of that money got frozen. And it's only after the court can appoint a sheriff and appoint someone to look into the affairs to then release that money to the correct heirs. Because as you know, there's also a problem with fraud when it comes to those issues.
Yes.
So as Muslims, sometimes the easiest will that one can leave, and these kinds of wills are available through our theological societies like the Jamiyat and a couple of other bodies, where in simple terms, and I know there's lawyers and Maulanas out there, but they can correct me if I'm incorrect, but a simple message that upon my passing, my estate should be devolved according to an Islamic manner, should suffice as a will.
Okay.
And I think if you can touch base with your lawyer or with a trusted scholar in your community, I advocate getting a will as soon as possible. The Prophet ﷺ had also pushed for the fact that a baligh Muslim should not let 3 days pass without having a will.
Oh, wow, that's so important. You know, most of us think, okay, I'm going to wait till the end of my life because we assume that we're going to live till a very late age in life. And inshallah, we all have long lives. But we assume that we're going to wait till that point. And then at that point, I'm going to distribute it accordingly so that I don't need to go through this headache of a will. But you've touched on it and it's so important. I had no idea that it can take up to 5 years before your estate even gets distributed to the right heirs. And I mean, in that time, you are long gone. You're probably a memory only in some people's heads, but they are struggling because of what you did not do in your life. So again, discipline is so important. We touched on discipline earlier, and discipline is so important, especially with something like that. What do you suggest someone who just started working now? Where does he go? What does he do now? Okay, I want to get a will in order. How do I go about doing it? And what's the right, correct way to do it?
Mo, when you talk of a will and being in the financial services industry, the word that instantaneously comes to my mind is harmony. So all of us as sane human beings would love to live a harmonious life. In that same vein, when we pass from this earthly realm, there should be harmony in our families.
Yes.
So before we come to that question, what I would also urge your listeners to do is, as you correctly point out, the biggest mistake we all make is we think there's enough time. There isn't enough time. I would proactively get involved in actually understanding what are the components of what makes up my will. I would like to also, like the listeners or the viewers, to actually delve into who are the potential beneficiaries. Because in the Quran, Allah has stipulated exactly who benefits from the estate. It is imperative as a Muslim to understand this. If we don't understand this, we should reach out to very many learned scholars, people in the legal profession with an Islamic bias in this case, and ensure that your wishes as a Muslim are actually fulfilled after you pass on. So maybe one of the simplest steps is to reach out to one of the theological bodies, and all of them offer a very simplistic will that actually covers the basics. If you bank with a bank like FNB, we do have a fiduciary team that offers an Islamic will.
Yes.
And we've got a team of experts from a Sharia perspective and also from a South African legal perspective that can actually assist and sit down with you in drafting a will that best accommodates your wishes in a Sharia compliant manner. Mo, there are many outlets, there are many opportunities for one to do so in today's climate. Ignorance is not going to be an excuse when you didn't do it. And unfortunately, you're not going to be around to see what devastation you leave behind.
No, for sure. And I mean, one of the most important questions is about our wealth, how we attained it, how we spent it, and that. And of course, we don't want to go facing Allah, looking at Allah, and not knowing how our inheritance was even distributed, if it was distributed in the correct way, based on us not putting a will out there. So surely having a will in place saves you from a lot of that when you do go onto the day of reckoning and we are going to be questioned about our finances.
And also stepping away from a selfish perspective. You're gone.
Yeah.
You leave people behind, people that you loved in your life. If you haven't taken this responsibility to draft your will, you're actually not doing any justice to the people that you leave behind and those people that you love.
I mean, we work every single day. Like you said, we want to put away for holidays, for school fees. We want to do all those things while we are alive. But we need to think going forward as well. And that's why inheritance is there, so that our loved ones can benefit from our hard work through our life, and they can then continue and then build a life without us in it. So it is important, like you're saying now, if you are an earning baligh Muslim, you need to have a will in place just so that there are no complications when you do pass away. If a will is in place, just asking now, if a will is in place and you do pass away, how long does it then take for the estate to be sorted out? Just quickly before we head to the break.
Look, given the different scenarios, and like we pointed out in the earlier shows, some people are blessed with more and other people with less. So just depending on the size of the estate, they're going to be different. So it's not a one size fits all.
Yes.
But if you have all your documentation in place, if you have all the things that you needed to have done, if you were responsible with your wealth and you were responsible with your estate, then Mo, it will be a seamless process for those that you leave behind. You're not going to put them in a difficult, destitute position. So I think this is something that weighs heavily upon your shoulders. And it's that last step when, like you correctly point out, in leaving a legacy so your family can continue and thrive successfully without you being there.
Fantastic. Viewers, I hope that you took a lot from that. There was so much in there that I didn't know myself, and I hope that this has educated us in getting what we need to get. I'll see you after the break where we discuss the final part with our brother. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Aman, before the show, we discussed the will. In part one, we discussed financial fitness. We're coming up to the end of the year now. Everyone is winding down, and I know no one wants to hear numbers being thrown in their face and that. But the beauty of a show like this, at the time that we are having the show, is it can guide people in the new year where so-called resolutions are made, where people say, okay, this is it now. I'm going to let this year go by. I'm going to let what COVID did to my finances go by. It's all in the past. We've learned our lessons from that. Going forward now, I need to find steps to find financial fitness. I need to get my will in order. I need to get my life in order. I need to get all of this in order because through this year, we've learned a lot. We've been motivated a lot. So now what do I do to get my financial fitness in order? What practical steps can you give our guests, our viewers today to be able to just move forward in 2023?
Such an amazing time of the year. We've had a good long calendar year. I think, as we say, we burnt out. We're looking forward to some time away. Hopefully, if you're going away on a vacation or a break, and then we know that everything starts off again in the new year. How beautiful for us! And I was just looking at my calendar. In 3 months' time, we'll witness Ramadan visiting us again. Mo, I think if we structure as Muslims our lifestyle, where I think all of us look at Ramadan as like some kickstart point into something. We sacrifice because we fast, and then we celebrate because we witness Eid coming in. Let's look at that as our basis to plan for our future going ahead, where we actually make our lifestyle choices habits. Mo, I know this talks a lot to how you work in the gym, because I know my kids always come home and say, my legs are so sore. But it's habit forming. And I think eventually what happens is when they do that same exercise enough, it doesn't hurt as much as it did the first time. Similarly with financial practices, it may hurt the first time, but once it becomes a positive habit, it becomes seamless and it basically stitches itself into your lifestyle. Let's all make that intention that we're going to take the pain up front, so we're going to ease it out. So it's like a short-term sacrifice for a long-term benefit. And I think if we start off with that notion, then inshallah, it smooths us into what is required of us. So from that perspective, if I can go back to the previous show where I said, let's write down exactly what's outstanding. We all know, shucks, my license is expiring. I need to do something about it. In this case here, I don't have a will. Let's make a note. First point, I need to sort out a will. Alhamdulillah, if you're blessed once again with lots of money, you may want to look at effectively leaving your legacy behind where it's effective from a tax perspective. So in that scenario, over and above a will, you may want to look at creating a trust. For example, the Moetivation Trust. I think that will be a nice trust for you to create,
be a good one.
where you actually leave your assets, behind for your family. And alhamdulillah, we also have Sharia compliant trusts that now comply with all of those requirements. And we do this so we can be tax efficient for those that we leave behind for. One of the most important things is that we have to acknowledge upfront that there are deficiencies that need to be attended to. So Mo, I think the first point is if we can pinpoint what we need to get doing, I think that's the first step. Very much like when someone walks into your gym, you can already do a quick assessment to say, I need to work you off and start you off here and there. That's where we need to start off. Because some people you may find have actually gone down a certain path, have gone and made the effort to create a will, but it may not be complete or it may not be accurate. To that point, Mo, one of the things that we also as Muslims are allowed to do is that up to a third of your estate can actually be bequeathed in your lifetime. So something else to think about,
Yes.
that while we are alive, if there was a worthy cause, if there is someone in your life that is not going to benefit from your will, and you wish to actually leave something for them, Allah has allowed us to actually follow that route as well.
The wisdom in it is unbelievable. So that's it. Find the structure, understand that we have to create some sort of resistance, just like you're saying in the gym as well. The resistance builds the muscle, the resistance, finding the discipline, stopping yourself from spending too much, take your wants down a little bit, and understand that your wealth is there for you, to benefit those around you, and be mindful of what you're spending it on. Stop wasting it on things. And if you put it down on a piece of paper, you'll understand what your actual, like you say, those basic needs that you have, those needs are there. It's written down, you can see it. And then you know what excess you have as well. No one says that you need to completely stop living. I mean, we are allowed to live in that, but not in extravagance. And in this, we'll be able to find so much barakat in our wealth, so much barakat in our time. We're all searching for happiness. We've had a number of shows where we spoke about happiness and how to find happiness. And I know in financial well-being is where we will find a lot of happiness. And if not happiness, just peace and contentment in our hearts. Do you agree with that?
You hit so many key words in that phrase or in that little burst you had. When we go and we train grade 6 learners about the difference between Islamic banking and conventional banking, before we even talk about any of the technical financial terms, we ask the learners to be able to discern the difference between a need and a want. As I'm sitting and listening to you, I don't think it's a grade 6 learner that needs it. Obviously, they do. But I think some of the adults that we talk to need to also understand, in my life, in someone else's life, a simple need could be a luxury,
Yes.
or vice versa, whatever it is. But I think we need to actually sit down and understand the difference between a need and a want, the luxuries that we've also become accustomed to, and can we fund those luxuries? And then the most important word you used was the element of mindfulness. I know it's become topical, but sometimes, just being in the moment, putting my hands on my legs, and absorbing and enjoying the moment that I'm having with you is a mindful moment. If we can bring that element of mindfulness into everything that we do, we become a hell of a lot more attuned to other people's needs, our family members, our friends, and those that we aim to leave a legacy with. And I think all of this very seamlessly stitches into that legacy we've been talking about.
No, you're so right, because I mean, like I said, on the show, we've spoken so much about happiness, patience, gratitude, and it all ties down into what we're speaking about today as well, because we as individuals always want more than what we have, but we as individuals don't look at what we don't have, and we got to be grateful for all these things. We're looking above us and we're not seeing below us. We got to be grateful for what we have, and then in that we can just serve all those around us. Aman, I really want to acknowledge you for your mind, for your wisdom, for bringing us up to date with financial well-being, financial fitness. It's such an important thing, and you're doing such an amazing job with the Sharia banking and making sure you comply to all of the laws of Sharia, making sure that you go in depth into finding it. So I really just want to acknowledge you for the individual we are. But before we end the show, there's a final question that I ask everybody. It's a hypothetical question. Many years from now, and may Allah give you a long, long, long life, and may you change countless lives with what you do and help many, many people find their investments and everything. But many years from now, it's your final day on earth, and you have done all the shows that you needed to do and given the interviews and that, but for some reason, it all has to be erased. Every last thing that you've done, every word that you put out there has to be erased. But you can leave the world with 3 pieces of advice. What would your 3 pieces of advice be?
Wow, Mo, that's quite a intense question, but let me give it a go. Even though everything is erased, Allah has created each soul to be unique. So point 1 is that my life has purpose, my life had purpose. I will comfortably go into the grave knowing that even if I had the ability to positively influence and change for the better a single soul, then I would have achieved an objective, my objective. Secondly, we speak about happiness. That word is so relevant in the financial circles. We come across people who are looking to grow wealth, to grow portfolios. And sometimes you sit back and wonder that if you can be truly content with what Allah has already blessed you with, then true happiness resides in that. You just need to find it. On that last day while I'm lying there, I will be happy to know, even though everything would have been erased, that those that I loved, those that I impacted, will remember me, even if it's a single dua after I leave. And then third, and maybe not least, is that I would like to think that I wouldn't change anything in my life for whatever hours or days I have left, because I would like to think that the life I lived was good enough to continue living. Because often you hear people say, oh, I've got 6 months because I got cancer or something. Now I'm going to stop everything and go to the mosque, or I'm going to spend more time with my family. I would like to think that I wouldn't have to change anything, because the life that I had lived will suffice me into the next afterlife.
Wow. Listening to that last point, it just a question popped up in my head. What was that moment in your life that said to you, I need to worry about my financial well-being, because I need to make sure from this moment with my 5 boys and my wife and my whole family, I need to make sure everyone is okay because I'm that pillar holding them together. What was that moment in your life?
Mo, I grew up in the rough streets of Fortsburg. I went to Johannesburg Secondary School, JSS.
The infamous.
Infamous, yeah. But alhamdulillah, we produced some good caliber people that came out of the school. But I think that element of street smarts, that element of being able to negotiate any challenge that life had thrown to you, as they say, life happens. I think it's at that point somewhere along the line when you realize that my father has lost his business. I finished school. I would like to get married. I'd like to have a family. But if I have no money, how is all of this going to come together? So I think with a healthy dose of faith, with a little bit of education and perseverance, it comes together. And one saying I love more, and I'm going to toss it into this, right, is they say when 2 well-meaning people come together to start a business, the 2 partners earn a 3rd partner, the Almighty. Wow. And the minute that that business prospers and starts doing the wrong things, the 3rd partner leaves. So I like to think in our own lives, in any venture that we do, if we try to keep on the straight and narrow, we try to respect the laws of Sharia, we do our best to be ethical, moderate, modest, and honest, then inshallah Allah will bless us with more. So that moment, Mo, really does kick when I suppose you hit the lowest of your low, when you realize that my life has purpose and it's my job to find that purpose.
Wow, man, that is such brilliant piece of advice to end the show on. And again, I want to acknowledge you for your wisdom. So I really appreciate your time. I know you are a very, very busy man, so I really do appreciate it. And I know our viewers appreciate it as well. Jazakallah Aman, and you keep well. Viewers, I know that this one was very informative. We've learned so much that a lot of us had no clue about. And understand that our life starts with discipline. Our life will continue with discipline. And in discipline, we'll be able to put every single last bit of our lives together to become the best versions of ourselves. So find your discipline, find your consistency, and find it within you to be the best versions of yourself. This is motivation, and let me motivate you.